American Jock, and you're watching WION The World is One. Our top focus at this hour: the Israel-Hamas war has flattened large parts of North Gaza, killed over 18,000 and driven most of the population to the southern part of the besieged territory. Some 1.9 million Palestinians, nearly 85% of Gaza's population, have fled their homes. The Israeli army said it had uncovered the biggest Hamas tunnel in the Gaza Strip so far. The army said the underground passage formed part of a wider branching network that stretched for more than 4 kilometers and came within 1,300 feet of the Erez border crossing.
So far, we have uncovered more than 4 kilometers of the tunnel's web. This is a flagship project of Hamas. It reaches a depth of 50 meters below the surface of the earth. Inside the tunnels, we found many weapons. This is no ordinary tunnel. It is a city of terror underground that Hamas dug and built instead of investing money in the residents of Gaza.
The Israeli forces also released a video of Mohammed Sinwar, the right-hand man and brother of Gaza chief Yahya Sinwar, being driven in a car through the massive tunnel. In a silent video, Sinwar can be seen giving instructions to the driver as they travel through the tunnel at a significant speed in a fairly modern-looking vehicle. The Syrian Defense Ministry said Israeli airstrikes against targets near Damascus wounded 2 Syrian soldiers on Sunday. A UK-based war monitor said Israeli aircraft struck Syrian regime anti-aircraft defenses and positions of Hezbollah near Saida Zainab district, south of the capital. An Israeli hostage mistakenly killed by soldiers in the Gaza Strip was buried on Sunday. 26-year-old Alon Shamriz was one of 3 Israeli hostages shot dead by soldiers during an operation in Shejaiya, even as they carried a white flag and cried for help in Hebrew. An Israeli hostage abducted by Hamas on October 7th from the Supernova Music Festival has been confirmed dead. The hostages and missing persons' families said Inbar Heyman was murdered at some point after she was kidnapped from the desert rave. The Israeli army also released images showing banners hung by the 3 hostages mistakenly killed by Israeli troops, with the writing "Help, 3 hostages" and SOS.
You escaped against all the chances and did everything to return home. So unfortunate. With all that you went through in those moments, you already saw the light, but it became darkness. Those who abandoned you also murdered you after you did everything right.
Palestinian Health Ministry stated Israeli forces killed 5 Palestinians on Sunday morning at a refugee camp in the West Bank. The Israeli military said airstrikes targeted 2 militants who had endangered soldiers. According to the Palestinian ministry, more than 290 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces or settlers in the West Bank since October 7th. Paris condemned an Israeli bombardment in Gaza, which caused the death of one of its foreign ministry officials who had taken refuge in the Rafah home of a colleague. The ministry demanded Israeli authorities to shed light on the circumstances of this bombardment as soon as possible. It did not give the name or nationality of the official who had worked for France since 2002. Pope Francis deplored the death of 2 women in a Catholic parish in Gaza, where he said defenseless civilians were targeted by shootings and bombings.
Unarmed civilians are being bombed and shot at. And this has even happened inside the Holy Family Parish compound, where there are no terrorists but families, children and sick people with disabilities and nuns.
The head of the World Health Organization denounced the effective destruction of the Kamal Adwan hospital in the north of Gaza, adding that at least 8 patients had died. Tedros Ghebreyesus said a 9-year-old child was among the deceased patients. And for more on this, our correspondent Jody Cohen has sent us this report from Ranana.
According to Egyptian security sources speaking to Reuters, both Israel and Hamas are open to a new hostage release deal. There are still more than 130 Israeli hostages being held captive in Gaza, and their families say their release should be the top priority. The deal would be likely to involve a pause in fighting, and negotiations are also likely to take time. Meanwhile, the UN Security Council is again voting on a resolution calling for a ceasefire. Remember, the US used its veto at the last ceasefire vote, suggesting that Hamas would be a continued threat to Israel, as Hamas has said it wants to carry out more 7th of October-style massacres against Israelis again and again. In the meantime, US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is visiting Israel on Monday to discuss the timetable of the war, measures to protect civilians, and also reportedly a new multinational maritime protection force to defend against attacks on shipping by the Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen. This is Jodie Cohen for WION World as One.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.